Every year, the world produces more than 1.5 million tons of silica gel, enough to fill over 600 Olympic-sized swimming pools. Most of it eventually ends up inside the tiny desiccant packets that many of us throw straight into the trash. At first glance, they don't seem particularly remarkable. But silica gel is one of the most effective moisture-absorbing materials ever created. So how did something so simple become one of the most widely used moisture control tools in the world? Today we're going to explore the story behind the silica gel packet. For thousands of years, people have known that moisture is the enemy of anything they want to preserve. The ancient Egyptians used mineral salts to preserve mummies and food. The Romans placed charcoal inside cargo containers during transport. In humid regions, people hung bags of quicklime in storage rooms to absorb excess moisture. Every era had its own solution, but none of them were truly effective enough to be used on a large scale. In 1640, silica gel was first documented in scientific records, but no one knew what to do with it. For nearly 300 years, it remained little more than an interesting laboratory discovery with no real place in the world outside science. Even though it appears in countless everyday products, most people don't actually know what silica gel is. The first thing to understand is that silica gel is neither a liquid nor a gel, despite what its name suggests. In reality, it is a form of silicon dioxide, or SiO2, the same compound found in sand and glass. What makes silica gel special, however, is not its chemical composition, but its structure. If you could magnify a single silica gel bead thousands of times, you would see a maze-like network of microscopic pores and tunnels running throughout the material. This unique structure creates an enormous internal surface area. Just 1 gram of silica gel can have a surface area of up to about 800 square meters, nearly the size of 2 basketball courts packed into a single gram of material. And that enormous surface area is the key to its remarkable moisture control abilities. But how does it actually capture and hold water? The interesting thing is that silica gel does not absorb water the same way a sponge does. When a sponge soaks up water, the water moves into the material itself. Scientists call this process absorption. Silica gel, however, works through a different process known as adsorption. Instead of soaking into the material, water molecules in the air attach themselves to the surfaces of the countless microscopic pores inside each silica gel bead. Because the total surface area inside those beads is so enormous, they can hold a surprisingly large amount of moisture relative to their size. That is why silica gel can absorb water equal to roughly 20 to 40% of its own weight before becoming saturated. In other words, the real work is not being done by the paper packet on the outside. It is being done by the millions of tiny silica gel beads inside. Every second, they quietly capture moisture from the air, helping keep humidity under control before it has a chance to cause damage. There is one phrase that almost everyone has seen, but few people have ever questioned. Do not eat. That warning alone has led many people to believe that silica gel is some kind of dangerous chemical. But the reality is quite different. In most cases, ordinary silica gel is considered largely non-toxic. Its main ingredient is silicon dioxide, the same compound found in sand and many naturally occurring minerals. The warning label is usually there not because the material is poisonous, but because the small beads inside can pose a choking hazard, especially for children and pets. There is, however, an important exception. Some types of silica gel contain color-indicating beads that change color when they become saturated with moisture. Older versions of these indicator beads often contained cobalt chloride, a chemical that should not be ingested and is now increasingly being replaced by safer alternatives. So the phrase "do not eat" does not always mean the same thing. Sometimes it is simply a safety warning. Other times, it is a warning about the chemicals used inside certain specialized types of silica gel. The only problem is that from the outside, they often look exactly the same. What does the desiccant packet in your shoebox have in common with a gas mask? It may sound completely unrelated, but they actually share part of the same history. During World War I, military engineers realized that moisture was not only damaging equipment, but also reducing the effectiveness of gas filters used in gas masks. Silica gel, with its exceptional moisture-absorbing ability, began to be incorporated into these filtration systems. It was the first time the material had proven its value on a large scale. Shortly after the war, in 1919, chemist Walter Patrick at Johns Hopkins University filed the first commercial patent for silica gel. By 1927, the first production plant had been built in Baltimore. Just 3 years later, the company behind it had filed more than 300 related patents. From factories and warehouses, silica gel gradually made its way into one industry after another, and eventually into individual consumer products. Until one day, it ended up inside your shoebox. When we think about desiccant packets, we usually think about ordinary everyday items. But, in many places, they help protect things that are worth far more. For example, a copy of the first issue of Action Comics, the comic book that marked Superman's first appearance, has sold for more than $6 million. For collectors, moisture is one of the biggest threats because it can warp paper, fade colors, and create the perfect conditions for mold growth. The same problem affects coins, stamps, and historical documents. The U.S. National Archives alone preserves billions of documents, photographs, and records that are decades or even centuries old. In places like these, controlling humidity is not a choice. It is a necessity. Even silver, a precious metal that has been used for thousands of years, can gradually tarnish when exposed to moisture and compounds in the air. That is why many collectors place silica gel inside safes and storage boxes. It may sound hard to believe, but sometimes the thing helping protect an item worth millions of dollars is a small packet of beads that costs less than $1. One interesting thing about silica gel is that many people never throw the packets away after opening a product. At first glance, they look like nothing more than small bags filled with a few dry beads. In reality, however, they can be surprisingly useful in everyday life. One of the most common uses is preventing salt from clumping. In humid environments, moisture in the air can cause salt grains to stick together. A small silica gel packet placed nearby can significantly reduce this problem. Photography enthusiasts and mechanical watch collectors have another reason to keep them. For them, moisture is a long-term enemy that can encourage mold growth or accelerate the deterioration of delicate internal components. As a result, silica gel often finds its way into storage cases and equipment boxes. Perhaps the most unusual use, however, is drying fresh flowers. Because silica gel removes moisture so efficiently, it can dry flower petals while preserving much of their original shape and color. It is a technique commonly used by people who create preserved floral keepsakes. Some people even place silica gel near condensation-prone windows or inside jewelry safes to reduce the effects of moisture. A material originally developed to protect goods has become a simple solution to countless everyday problems. If silica gel constantly absorbs moisture, does it eventually wear out? Yes, but not in the way you might think. When a desiccant packet stops working, the silica gel beads inside are not damaged. They have simply become full of water. The good news is that you can easily bring them back to life at home. Simply place the silica gel in an oven at about 100 to 120 degrees Celsius for 1 to 2 hours. Most of the trapped moisture will be driven off, allowing the beads to work again. Many people also use an air fryer or leave them in direct sunlight for several hours to achieve the same result. Some types of silica gel even contain color-indicating beads. When dry, they may appear orange or blue. Once saturated, they change to green or pink, signaling that it is time to dry them out again. In other words, what most people think of as a disposable product can actually be reused many times with very little loss in performance, something that is surprisingly rare among moisture-absorbing materials. What is interesting is that the main character of this story was probably never the desiccant packet itself. It was water vapor, an invisible substance that can damage everything from small everyday items to cargo moving across the world. For thousands of years, people have searched for ways to control it. Today, more than 75 countries trade silica gel. A material that was first developed for wartime applications is now found inside countless boxes around the globe. Perhaps that is what makes these tiny, desiccant packets so remarkable. The things quietly protecting the modern world are often the things we rarely notice.